Sensing a definite color scheme here.
Oh, I've used this color scheme for about 8 years now, so yes, it's my standard color. The Jimmy John's restaurant that's under construction is located at 525 South Jackson Street. And just to help orient folks a little bit, the red square here represents the site roughly, where that is under construction today. It's at the intersection of 6th Street, east-west, and Jackson Street in the north-south. As part of their project, they are not required to do any frontage improvements because we had existing curb gutter sidewalk, all of that's in place. Street width is what it has been needed for quite a while. So they were not required to do any improvements, but they have decided that they wanted to update the sidewalks along the fronts of the building, east and south. So they have actually removed the walk along most of the southern boundary and all of this eastern boundary. With the idea that part of it is that it could get damaged during construction of the building because the building's right up tight against the property line, back of the sidewalk, and then they want to have these nice, fresh-looking sidewalks when they're done and they open the doors to the new business. So that is the first thing that has happened. The second thing is there has been some occurrence out there and some damage with the trees that are existing, and these are very large trees, as we've seen all the way along Jackson Street. And when you think about the fact that the building is coming right up to that property line, and in that pretty large diameter tree is sitting, in the sidewalk but behind the curb line, there's not a lot of room in there. And so there has been some intrusion into the root area under the drip line of the tree, and so it's anticipated that those trees are going to be coming out as part of that. They were going to have to be trimmed up quite a ways anyway just to fit the building structure in the way that lays out. So those couple of things have been going on. We're having some then discussions about, okay, if all that is happening, what goes back in here? If we take a look at what the site looks like today, this is a couple of images from Google Earth. This is the Lata Eagle building here. So the site starts right at the south end, runs along this little wooden fence down at the corner, and obviously it goes on around. Right there, right? So that would be the building face, the eastern face of the structure. Those are the two trees I was just talking about. You can see they're pretty good size, pretty close to the street, but only about 3 feet or so from the property line. Pretty narrow in there, narrow sidewalk, a little bit of uplifting. This story has a similar trend to what you've heard before not too long ago.
And I'm going to have a similar question.
Okay, very good.
Not the same one.
We've anticipated your answer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very good. So just another site picture here, again showing the site back in here where the building frontage will be located. Obviously large trees in the small tree wells in close proximity to the street and to the site. So with all of this in flux, of course, staff is always trying to look ahead and have interesting ideas about what we should be doing as we're looking at developments like this and how we can improve the downtown core. So the idea, of course, came forward, as you're anticipating, of should we do a similar treatment here to what is being done in front of the EMSI operations and in front of Salvation Army now, based on council's approval. So we have looked at that concept, and these are very rough early sketches of how it might lay out. And again, this is Jackson here, 6th Street right at the bottom, existing sidewalk in this area, and the existing curb line kind of runs right along here. And so this section is what has been taken out by the contractor now, along with some of this. And if we were to use a similar treatment to what was done in front of the MSI parcel, we would take that existing curb line that's here and move it out to here where these two yellow lines are located. Okay? And so we'd have the same section as we're doing further north on this street. We would have a wider sidewalk section that would give us more room to plant trees with sufficiently sized tree wells and a vintage style light or two, depending on the extent of the work. You'll see here there's the yellow line that comes in here. There's two concepts on this drawing. One would be starting out here, bringing that curb line around and only going about 50 feet of the site and then coming back in to the existing curb line location with the idea that we'd retain some parking in here. The other concept would be to do the entire frontage, which obviously has a little more cost, and then bringing that back to the existing curb line alignment at the north property line. So two concepts shown. What's in blue represents some of the storm line work that would need to go in. The pink lines represent removal of the concrete street section in Jackson that would have to come out and then go back in outside of the new curb line. So that's what all those lines represent. A little bit of asphalt patching here at the bottom. So that's the idea. We're pretty early in this in terms of, there are a lot of steps that we need to go through, obviously coming back through council with the discussion about, is this something we want to pursue? Here's some cost. How would we pay for it? What's the participation between the property owner with what they've already removed and new trees going in, that type of thing, and the city with, the added sidewalk area, maybe under the sidewalk program, some additional storm drain work, street lights, maybe on a street light program, things of that nature. Also, of course, getting approval from ITD, which at the surface of it, they're saying, the concept is probably reasonable. We've looked at it before on the MSI frontage, but most likely the big concern they're going to have is there is an existing right turn lane
There's my question.
Right? It starts right at the north property line. That's the last parking stall, and then there's immediately basically a 8-inch wide, what we call a gore stripe, but it's a white stripe through there that designates a fairly narrow right turn lane. And it's probably a substandard right turn lane in size, but it is used. It's not very long, and access to it is a little challenging, but it is used. So part of what we're looking at is, okay, if this proceeds, then that right turn pocket goes away. What does that do? What does that mean? We do believe we have some counts, turning movement counts and through traffic counts from this intersection from the multimodal transportation plan. So
Is there a way to model it with the programs that they've used for
there is.
the signaling then?
Yeah, there are some ways to do that. So that's one of the possibilities. We want to take a look at the data we collected in the field previously to find out just how many turning movements we have versus through traffic. There's 3 through lanes there heading southbound, and if just anecdotally, if you think about what people tend to do out there, especially if they're coming east on 3rd and State 8 and they're turning south and they're heading on south, if they're going to Troy, they tend to get into the easterly lane because that becomes the through lane as you get to the end of the couplet. If they're a larger vehicle like a chip truck and they're going to Lewiston, they tend to grab that middle lane because that's the outside turning lane as you get to the couplet. Everybody else is a bit of a mix, and the cars can be either the center lane or that easterly lane,
Because if that chip
or
truck's in
westerly
their way
lane,
or not.
or that chip truck is in the way. Obviously, those that are turning right on 6th Street are grabbing that west side lane. Some of them actually get into the lane before they turn. Some just kind of drift across it as they're making the turn, and some people continue straight forward. So that's probably what we'll be looking at is just how all that is operating today. What might change? And
It's an unmarked turn lane, is it not?
All of them are unmarked.
They're all in
There's
same.
the one by the
There's one at
bank
3rd.
and the one by St. John Hardware too.
right.
That one at the bank is basically, and St. John Hardware. They're all the same width, and but everybody uses them.
They do.
The only sign you got's the one up on the signal pole.
Yeah,
The
I think they're marked on the pole, but I don't know if they're painted.
There was a time when there was parking there.
Yeah,
Probably so.
right.
And I suspect that probably what happened at some point was that there were enough folks saying, hey, I'm turning right at this intersection. I could turn right on red if I wasn't waiting behind somebody going southbound. And so that lane came into existence, taking out some parking. And I imagine that happened in both locations.
And that's an ITD thing, not an
ITD obviously would be involved in the discussion about that. And I talked with Ken Helm at ITD just today, actually, to be able to connect with him. That was the one item he said that we would really have to look at what the impact of that would be. And so that's something that they're going to be focusing on. And so we'll need to provide some information and a little better sketch than this, obviously, in terms of what the thing would look like.
Beyond that, it's just what's the participation by Jimmy John's in
Or will there be any?
costs? Yeah.
Right. And that's part of what we're still working out. Obviously, they've removed some sidewalks, so they're going to be replacing sidewalk or some value associated with that sidewalk. The trees, if they're coming out and have a replacement, there's going to be something associated with that, and we're still working through the details on what that might be.
Wayne, you had something else?
I realize that because of the zoning that they're allowed to build right out to the sidewalk line.
Yes.
I guess I'm a little bit surprised that they're doing that. I had anticipated that they might be 12 or 15 feet back so that they could have outside dining and some terrace area. Apparently that's not the case, so then my question would be is, we completely redo these sidewalks, and there we got nice wide sidewalks and so on and so forth in there, and then they're going to want to come out and have some chairs and tables out on the sidewalk within the right-of-way. I'm a little disappointed in that. I can see the handwriting on the wall there.
Well, actually, with the Jimmy John site, the building does border the easterly property line, but it does not come all the way to the south property line. They did leave an area there that at one point was designated as outdoor seating.
How big?
Well, it's the width of the building, east-west. Depth-wise, it seems like it was about 15 or 20 feet, but I don't know for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
perhaps if Bill's still here, he might be able to answer that. But
Here comes Bill.
the latest iteration of the plans didn't show it as a area for that purpose. One of the earlier versions did, but the space, I believe, is still there, unless that's changed.
Yeah, the area, and I don't know the exact depth. It's probably somewhere between 12 and 15 feet in depth off of 6th Street that they do have 4 tables proposed for outdoor seating on the south side of the building.
Okay, so they're not building right out to the property line then?
They're
south.
not on the 6th Street front.
Okay.
They are on the Jackson, and I think probably Jackson is going to be less desirable for outdoor seating because of the heavy truck traffic they're going to have.
Right.
And so 6 will be viewed as probably more desirable location, plus then you also have solar access, during the
Right.
colder
Well,
spring.
that eliminates my other concern that I had with building out to the property line on both sides was line of sight on a right-hand turn then. So,
Well, certainly site
okay.
triangles
So I
come
feel
into
better
play.
about that then. Thank you.
So,
So today, this is a briefing, just letting you know what's going on, because this is the type of thing that, as it gains momentum, it starts moving pretty fast. So we wanted to make sure that the council is up to date on where we are today, with the thought that, as we advance this a little further, we'll be coming back with thoughts about, here's what it might cost, here's what ITD says, yes, no, maybe. That may end up coming in a situation where we have to go direct to council, perhaps, based on timing issues. So we're still, just wanting to make sure you guys are up to date.
Gary?
Yeah, we're trying to be as nimble as we can as these situations. It's that street frontage is one that's been discussed for a long time. Here's perhaps an opportunity, maybe didn't come forward as we may have liked, but it is in the Urban Renewal District. There are opportunities that perhaps the Urban Renewal Agency might see a value in it as well, similar as they did it on the MSI project. So it could be a good chance to get that sort of urban landscape street frontage that we've wanted for Jackson Street. So even though it didn't occur in the manner we wanted, it's showing itself now. ITD has been at least willing to expedite the process, and Les's people will continue to work with them, and hopefully we'll get a good result out of that. We can move ahead fairly quickly other than that, especially if we use the same hybrid funding model that we used on EMSI, of some overlay funds, some street lighting funds, some sidewalk funds, some URA owner participation funding resources. So there's a good chance we can get something done if we can get approvals done quickly enough through ITD.
Okay, two things. First off, would we be looking at construction this fall like we are with the EMSI?
Well, since the sidewalks need to go back in, yes.
And then the next thing, well, I'm going to see how nimble you can get. Nimble. And see how, why not throw us a figure, see what it'd take to connect it up there to where we're going at the MSI.
Oh, to go all the way up?
Yeah, if we're looking for that urban streetscape, why not, if we can get a swinging deal and get it all done at once, why not?
We have
Especially if URA will partner with us on it.
Yeah, we have run numbers on that
Okay.
previously. So, yeah, we can
But, again,
bring those along.
you're looking at a lot, less mobilization, and things like that, and somebody might be hungry, and
Tear it
Yeah,
all
the-
up at one
the big-
time and fix it.
The big challenge, there's a lot of appeal to that. I agree. The big challenge will be the financial of how we swing this, because we're kind of fitting it in amongst various programs, and there is a limit in what's currently available.
and we'll want to know how much parking we're stripping, too, so.
Certainly.
We've also asked ITD to just consider that whole street frontage will have this profile.
Eventually, we'll have it, yes.
Well, if you have a node on each end, sooner or later, you're going to fill the middle end.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.